Hey everybody, I wanted to talk about something a little bit different this week. I think last week's Mudrick video went well from a coaching perspective, so I want to talk a little bit about similar things. Specifically to do with set pieces, which I think is a fun topic for everybody. So far this season, Chelsea are running basically a 0 set piece expected goal difference, which is not great. If we look at past years, like I think 2020, which was like the first season Anthony Barry was like properly here. Chelsea's non-penalty expected goal difference was like 0.1 per game. So over the course of a whole season, that's plus 4 goals. And you might say to me, okay, Kieran, plus 4 goals is is nothing. But I think if we could add 4 goals to our attack, everybody would be quite happy. So I wanted to take a look at this, and set pieces are something I quite like. One of the summer teams that I work with essentially won a provincial championship off the back of being very, very good at set pieces. They have a very good coach who works with their set pieces there, who him and I work together a lot. So I wanted to look at some stuff. So let's start here. There's kind of 3 things that you have to think about when you're talking about set pieces. The first is what teams look like defensively, and in that there are 3 phases. The first is looking at heavy man marking. So this is what Nottingham Forest will look like. I'll show you in a minute. The yellow players here in red are the zonals. So they have 1, 2, 3 zonals, and then they bring everyone back for their corners. So you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 marking, and then the goalkeeper is free, of course. When you are attacking a team who defends with mostly man markers, your priorities are mostly focused on how do you get players free from the markers with a few key principles. So the first is something called framing the goal, in that you want people all around the net, right? So you want players at the front post, you want players to get to the middle of the goal, and you want players to get to the back post. And you might say, okay, Kieran, why do we want that? And there's a few reasons. The first is that hitting very good corners is hard, so that if your target is number 2 but you overhit it, you have number 4. If your target is number 4 but you overhit it, you have number 6, or 10 or 7 or whatever. The second part of that is that scoring headers is hard. If this player gets a header, yes, they might score here, but they also might put it wide here. So if you have a near post player, they might put it wide at the back post. And we've seen this. How many times have we seen Harry Kane at the back post, flicked header to finish? This was a Mourinho special or a Conte special all the time, having someone arriving at the back post. Very, very critical that you have players framing the goal. The second is that you need to disrupt the people who are marking you in some way. So what you'll see a lot in a lot of the Chelsea clips is they will stack 2 players like this. So if I get these guys out of the way so you can see, they will stack 2 players like this, so that when they come mark, if these players split, this player immediately has some separation, right? Because they've started like this. And so you might say to me, okay, Kieran, well, why don't they just mark from this side? Okay, well, now you can do the same thing, but going to the back post. And so a lot of how you set these up is based on what you see from the opponent that week. You might notice, Kieran, there's a lot of blues here, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's all your outfield players. Chelsea did this against Nottingham Forest specifically because they brought everyone back, so you don't need anyone a half. You have these 2 players to grab loose balls, and there's a lot of things that we can talk about these 2 positioning based on the delivery. So with that, we'll show some clips, and we'll move on. Here we go. Okay, so we can see 1 zonal, 2 zonal, 3 zonal, and then you have everybody else marking. And so there's a couple things Chelsea do. They've still got the 2 players here. You might notice that they're skewed much more towards the ball. This is actually a really nice, like, little tweak. This shows that Chelsea are actually paying a little bit of attention. Outswinging deliveries tend to get cleared towards the near post more often than the far post. So by being skewed towards the ball, you're much more likely to pick up these near post clearances, and leaving 2 outside or even 3 outside. You might see some teams put a third player here. Means you're much more likely to collect the second balls off of outswingers, which is very common. Here you can see the 2 players stacked, like I showed, 1, 2, and then you can see another group of 3, a freebie, and a freebie. The most critical roles in this corner are to get in front of the 2 zonal players to stop them from clearing it. Because anything that gets played into this corridor, they're going to win unless we get a player there. So let's see what Chelsea do. Thiago Silva is totally free, but they don't get anyone across the front 2. Gets cleared by not a zonal, but a marker who's just popped off to win it. Right, number 30 just boom goes and wins it. But Chelsea collect the second ball. Here they run the same corner again. This time I think this is Enzo. I can't really tell. Enzo brings his marker in front of the zonal, so one of the zonals is blocked off. But now you need to get someone in front of the next 2. Again, a free player. I think this time it's the zonal that Enzo maybe doesn't block off all the way. Gets a free run. What you might notice on both of these is that it seems like the headers are actually reasonably uncontested. One thing that I think Chelsea can do a lot better is that these groupings are starting really far from goal. It is very hard for Disasi to get from the 18 fully marked to the edge of the 6. This is really hard. It's like a big, big battle. And if we look at the next clip as well, right, like they are starting again from right at the edge of the 18. By the time any of them get there, like doesn't even get to the 6, doesn't 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 get to the 6. And we know that headers are much better inside the 6 than they are outside, especially if you are playing in-swinging deliveries. You also might notice the in-swingers, they're much more evenly stacked in terms of the guys on the end of the box. Okay, same again. This time you have Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer maybe doesn't know the set pieces as well. He doesn't bring his marker in front of the zonal. Okay, the zonals are all free to get it. The ball's a little bit overcooked. That's fine. So now they've adjusted. They've gotten much closer, which is a lot better. They've got 3 on the edge. Again, whether this is a choice or it just happens, I don't know. But they're much, much closer, so they should be able to get a lot closer. And this time you just don't have the good occupation of the middle lane. My guess is that Disasi is supposed to get there based on Palmer being back post and Disasi getting wrestled. Again, this is the difficulty of Premier League set pieces. These teams are very good at defending them. But again, you look every single one of these clips, Chelsea have gotten the second ball off the corner, which is good. This I don't love. This is quite late in the game, but it's just like stagger and run and hope for the best. This is bad. If late in the game, that even after you've made subs, that your team is doing this is really bad. This kind of setup that you might see is a heavy zonal setup. So we saw this against Liverpool and West Ham. West Ham were set up with 6 zonals along the 6-yard box and 4 players marking. 1 was out for the short. And Liverpool, we saw the same 6, but they were set up a little bit differently. Again, zonal markers, your priorities are very different, right? And the things you use are very different. So if we think back to the setup that Chelsea used against Nottingham Forest, which was heavily man-to-man, right? So the players are very, very bunched together, using each other as screens to get free. There's no point doing this against zonals, right? Because you're just free to run. So if you do this, you're just blocking yourself from getting to the spot. Against zonals, it's much more about how can we get players in between without getting picked up. So one thing you might see is you might see players come from the backside. So you might see this number 7 make a run in front of number 5, but they curve it from the backside. So you might see, right, they're off the shoulder, you can't see them. From the blind side, boom, they come in, and then it's like the whip delivery between 2 guys, and you score like that, right? So you might see something like that. The other is that you might see people set picks. So you might see something like this player tries to block 7 so that another player can come into the gap. You might see players try and front people, so you might see this player come out to try and flick stuff on. You might see this player pop out to try and flick stuff on. So everything really what you want to think about when you're attacking zonals is how can I get myself from somewhere they can't see me in front of the zonal. And we'll talk about some short corners and stuff later because there's some stuff you can do there as well. But really what you're really looking to do is how can I get myself in front of zonals or behind zonals so that I don't get picked up, right? We always talk about the English hard man who's like, I don't like zonal marking. You're trying to really make him feel it. Okay. So here's West Ham, like I said, 6 zonals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Emerson is marking, keeper is free. 1 comes out for the short. So Chelsea run 1 short off of this, right? You're really trying to see if you can pull people out. Can you open things up? So here Jackson shows from the block if we watch Jackson, right? Jackson sees if he can pull one of these zonal players out. He does. Right, in an ideal world, Enzo gets himself onside more quickly. He makes his run straight out so he can come in and get this. Doesn't happen. Chelsea turn around and don't really get anything of value out of it. Okay, and then here's another short. So same idea again. Can you disrupt the zone? So when you play the short, who is coming out to engage the short and who is picking up once the ball goes? Do they stay marking zonally? Do they switch to player? Does it go half and half? Right, this one I actually really like because they play it. Mudryk gets himself onside right away and is able to cross from a much better position. Okay, it gets blocked, doesn't come off, but you can imagine a world where he stood this up to the back post. Here's Liverpool playing some long ones. Right, so they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zonals, but very different setup. Okay, they leave this space very free because it's very hard on outslingers. Chelsea double up on the back post player, but they're really looking to get into this zone. They just don't do a very good job of it. Again, they play a short first. Sorry, I forgot I put the shorts first. And they try and see if they can create some numbers up. Now here's the deliveries against the zone. Okay, so small bunch to try and disrupt these two, which is fine. Again, I'd rather you just start closer and run, which is fine, but they're really trying to get in front of 7. They're really trying to get into this space here, and you can see that there's a blocker on Souček. Right, we've seen this a couple times with Enzo. Enzo is a blocker, right? Enzo's not very good in the air. His corner deliveries also kind of suck. So they use him as a blocker to stop Souček from being able to go get the ball. Good delivery. Silva gets a flick, gets a block on it, right? This is actually quite a good corner. You might get something from this. Here's the same delivery again. This time it's a little bit overcooked. Right, like if this is under hit, it's a free header inside, and even then they have good occupation of the spaces. But now when we talk about framing the goal, you say, Disasi, what's your role? If you're supposed to get to the back post, you got to get to the back post, my friend, because that's a free goal. Here's the same thing again. Clearly, Disasi is supposed to get to the back post. Keeper does really, really well, but you can see again, they get themselves free, and they get runners across the zonal. In front. The 70s against West Ham were pretty good. West Ham just defended them really well. Jackson pops out to try and pull this zonal out, right? So if you open this player up, you open even more space. Enzo has the block again. This is I actually really like. And Silva is totally free. Again, if these deliveries are into that space, Silva is getting a flick every single time. The deliveries were quite poor. One thing I prefer about this is if you really want to pull this player out, is you start inside and you bump them as you come out. So they're like, oh, I have to follow that guy. But you can see how much space they opened up on Paquetá there. Jackson does the same move again. This time the delivery is just a little bit too close to the goal. But if you see, look, like if it's under hit, Enzo's free. Here's another one. So this one you see Silva starts inside and tries to pop out. I don't mind this one, but I prefer it as a blocker, not as someone to go win it. But Jackson on this one has made the same run 8 times, so Paquetá doesn't follow. Watch Paquetá, it doesn't even move. Right, so this is why you need to vary up your routines a little bit. But we've seen like 4 times he pulls out. He followed him once, and then he sort of followed him, and now he doesn't follow him at all. We saw the short corner in the first half where he actually got the ball. Might be one where you try and play him. It might be one where you play him for a short, so you play him and come get it back. It might be one where you play him for a dummy, something like that. He might just have to come and front him to try and flick on. There's options. And then here again. Right. This time they bring the players forward, so you have space at the back. Again, these are all fine. The deliveries are really poor is a big problem. But Chelsea generally do a pretty good job, pull a zonal out, open up. The corners in these 2 games were much better than the corners in the other games. And you can see the same principles every time. Right, so here we see, as soon as we can see it, Chukwuemeka pulls Andy Robertson forward, and then Silva and Chilwell try and get in front of Konate. They do a really bad job on that one, but Chelsea gained the regain, and that's all the zonal marking ones. The zone and the man marking ones are interesting. I won't go over the same things on the tactical pad, but you see a lot of the same concepts. Chelsea were really into playing shorts against Bournemouth. I don't know why, because Bournemouth aren't massive, and Chelsea are quite a big team, especially with all 3 center backs on. But there were some shorts that I liked and some shorts that I didn't like. So one that I did quite enjoy is they would bring this player all the time, right to the edge and just behind him. I would love if they just played him to turn much more frequently. Because this is really scary, especially if he's behind this player. And now it's kind of hard to tell because the ball's already started moving. But you can imagine Mudryk plays this pass and you turn and go straight to goal, and it's a very, very scary situation. Instead, they play back to the edge and they try and go from here in behind. I think you have to play this in 1. He doesn't. It doesn't come off. And now they have quite a dangerous counter. Here's the same setup. This one they actually play it, which I quite like. But this I don't love. Right? I would almost rather you play like Sterling on the edge here for him to shoot and use these players as blockers. Because by playing here, you shrunk everyone in. So now it's like, can I play Sterling here? I don't think this was planned because there's no way you're setting up a short corner for Thiago Silva on the edge like this. It's definitely other people, but that's my preference would be if you're going to play this corner is to play here, and then now that you've shrunk people, use Ugochukwu to block Billing, and then you play Sterling to the edge to shoot. Or Solanke, maybe not Billing. Here's another short. I don't love these where there's no plan. They're just playing short to play short, right? If they have brought 2 players out on the short, you should be serving. Because you're now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 v7 instead of being like 5v9 or whatever when you have the players on the edge. If they brought the 2 out, I think you should serve. But they don't. It's a bit of a mess. They end up slipping Mudryk and he crosses and it gets cleared. Here's the Luton game. So Luton are the same. 1, 2, 3, 4 zonals. Everybody else marks. It's halfway in between. Here's another one. They play the short and then it's just like improv. I really dislike this. I think it's a total waste of an attack or of a corner. You get nothing out of it. This one I don't mind. Right, so these ones at least there's clearly a plan of can we play and then someone spins behind. Fine, not the worst. Again, every time you add a pass, it's just math, right? Like if this is if Enzo can make this pass to Sterling 95% of the time, and then this pass from Sterling goes off 99% of the time, and then this one goes 99% of the time, those 3 passes, you've already killed 10% of your probability, which is not worth it. This one I really, really like, because this one is all about getting in behind for a better place to cross. People are really mad about this because it's Chilwell delivering on his right foot, which I agree. Ideally, you're having like Mudryk take this, or a right-footed, or Sterling even taking this corner. But I actually really, really like this setup. So you end up with, the ball goes to the top, and you end up with this 4v2. So now this player has to choose because he's dangerous. This player has to choose because he's dangerous. So you're able to get Chilwell in behind really easily. Because if you didn't, he could just play boom and turn himself. So you get in behind to a great spot. Like, as much as this is, it's Chilwell on his right foot, this is actually a really, really good spot to cross from. If this goes through legs, it's a cutback shot. If it gets stood up into the 6, maybe it's a shot. Maatsen ends up just missing like a free header from 10 yards out. This is a totally fine corner. We're back to using the blockers to get past the zones, or to get past the man-to-man, and they're trying to pin the zonals with Ugochukwu and Colwill. And again, free. We don't have occupation at the back post, and we don't do a good job getting rid of the big guys. Here's another short. This should just never happen. It should not. It should be banned. You should tell him never again. It is a total waste. These do not go in. Throwing away possession. And there's also like huge risk to this, right? So you have, let's see, who took the corner? You have Enzo takes the corner. You have Palmer on the goal line. You have Sterling. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're the last player back. If he blocks this, he's on a breakaway the other way, which is totally scary and not worth it. So again, I really wish Chelsea would get rid of these. Same problems again. Starting too far away, right? Nobody is getting to the edge of the 6 where you actually score goals. That Bournemouth performance was really poor. Again, same details, starting way too far away. At least they start a little bit early on this one, but they can't get to the 6. And this is repeatedly a problem, is that the deliveries are too far away and the runs are too far away. So the headers are all from 7, 8, 9, 10 yards out instead of being on the 6 in the 6. If we think back to the goal West Ham scored against us, it's all in the 6. It's all whipped with pace into the 6. Headers from here are like 3 times more likely than headers from the penalty spot. You can play around with any of the publicly available XG calculators. Headers from 3, 4, 5 yards out are like 3 to 4 times more likely than headers from 12 yards out. It's just the math. And then the last one. Okay, so some decent stuff, right? Like, I think Chelsea do a pretty good job attacking zonals. I think they really struggled attacking these kind of mixed systems where they have the man players to disrupt the runners, and they have the zonals to pick up freebies. I think Chelsea did a very poor job of getting the runners into the 6. I will be keeping my eyes to see if this improves moving forward. Thank you very much. Let me know what else you want to see.